August 1944. The Allied breakthrough at Normandy has shattered German defenses across France. General George Patton's Third Army is racing eastward at speeds no military planner thought possible, advancing 30, 40, sometimes 50 miles per day. But there's a problem no one anticipated. The armies are outrunning their supply lines. Every Sherman tank burns 5 gallons of fuel per mile. Every infantry division needs 650 tons of supplies daily. Ammunition, rations, medical equipment, spare parts. The port of Cherbourg, still being repaired from German demolition, can barely handle a fraction of what's needed. The next major port, Antwerp, won't be operational for months, which means everything. Every bullet, every bandage, every can of beans has to be trucked overland from the Normandy beaches, 350 miles to the front lines, through bombed-out roads the Germans destroyed during their retreat. At Supreme Headquarters, the logistics officers are looking at numbers that don't add up. Patton's tanks are literally running dry. The Third Army has advanced so rapidly that supply trucks can't keep pace. In 1 week alone, forward units report being down to 3 days of ammunition. Some tank battalions are completely immobilized, not from enemy action, but from empty fuel tanks. The room erupts when Colonel Frank Ross, Chief of Transportation, briefs General Eisenhower on August 21st. "We're losing 23% of supplies before they reach the front," Ross reports. Truck accidents, German air attacks, vehicles breaking down mid-convoy. If Patton stops moving, the Germans will reinforce. If he keeps moving without supplies, his army will collapse. Eisenhower stares at the map. The window to end the war by Christmas is closing. How long to fix this? Weeks, maybe months. We'd need to completely redesign the convoy system, establish proper maintenance depots. We don't have weeks. Eisenhower's finger traces the red line marking the German border. The Wehrmacht is retreating now. Give them time to regroup, and we'll be fighting through the Siegfried Line in winter. He looks around the room. I need solutions in days, gentlemen, not months. The meeting adjourns with no answers. That same day, 90 miles from headquarters, Technical Sergeant Raymond Ray Kowalski sits in the cab of his GMC Jimmy truck, staring at the wreckage of another convoy. 8 trucks. Overturned, burned out, supplies scattered across the roadside. A Luftwaffe strafing run caught them bunched together on a narrow road. Sitting ducks. Kowalski is 34 years old, a long-haul trucker from Pittsburgh before the war. No college degree, no military pedigree. Just 15 years of driving steel shipments across Pennsylvania's mountain roads in all weather, all conditions. The Army drafted him in '43, put him through 2 weeks of driver training, and sent him to France. Now he's watching good men die, because nobody in command understands how trucks actually work. He lights a cigarette and thinks about something his dispatcher back in Pittsburgh used to say: convoys are for show. Profits are in the spacing. Call to action, number 1-230 mark. Before we continue, if you're fascinated by the untold innovations that changed history, hit that subscribe button. 75% of you watching aren't subscribed yet, and you're missing stories like this every week. The official convoy doctrine for the Red Ball Express, the code name for this emergency supply operation, is simple. Trucks travel together in formations of 20 or more vehicles, 60 yards apart, 25 miles per hour maximum. Safety in numbers. Kowalski has driven 6 convoys in the past 2 weeks. Every single one has taken casualties. The problem isn't the German air attacks, though those are deadly enough. The problem is what happens before the attack. 20 trucks bunched on a rural French road create a target visible from 10 miles away. When the lead vehicle spots enemy aircraft, the entire convoy stops. Nobody can maneuver. The trucks ahead are trapped by the trucks behind. The spacing that's supposed to provide safety instead creates a perfect kill zone. But Kowalski notices something else. On August 23rd, his convoy is delayed at a depot for 6 hours. Some trucks are loaded faster than others. A few drivers, impatient with the wait, just leave on their own when their cargo is secured. No coordination, no organization. Those independent drivers arrive at the Ford supply dump safely. Every single one. The official convoy Kowalski eventually joins loses 3 trucks to a German FW-190 attack. He starts watching the pattern. Independent trucks, traveling alone or in pairs, spread out over hours instead of bunched in 30-minute windows. They're nearly impossible for German aircraft to target effectively. Even if the Luftwaffe spots one truck, it's not worth the fuel and ammunition to attack a single vehicle. But a convoy? That's a target worth diving on. The math is simple. A convoy of 20 trucks is one target. 20 individual trucks, spaced across 4 hours of travel time, are 20 separate hunting missions. The Germans only have so many aircraft, so much fuel, so many pilots. Kowalski runs the numbers in a notebook. The convoys average 23% losses, accidents, attacks, breakdowns. But the handful of independent trucks he's tracked, less than 3% losses. On August 25th, he takes his notebook to his company commander, Captain Dennis Hayes. "Sir, I think I know how to cut our supply losses by 90%. Hayes looks at the truck driver standing in his tent, dusty coveralls and oil-stained hands, and says the words that will echo through military logistics for the next 80 years. "Kowalski, you're a goddamn truck driver. Leave the tactics to people who went to West Point." The official Army rejection comes in writing. Captain Hayes forwards Kowalski's proposal up the chain with a note. "Enlisted man suggests abandoning convoy doctrine. Recommend dismissal." The response from battalion headquarters is immediate. Convoy procedures are based on established military doctrine. Individual vehicle operations create communication gaps, eliminate mutual support, and violate tactical protocol. Proposal denied. Kowalski reads the memo and laughs bitterly. Tactical protocol. He's been driving trucks since these staff officers were in high school, and they're lecturing him about vehicle operations. But he doesn't give up. On August 27th, he approaches Lieutenant Colonel Martin Burgess, the Deputy Operations Officer for the Transportation Corps. Burgess actually listens for 10 minutes before shaking his head. "Ray, I understand your logic, but do you know what happens if I send trucks out individually and one breaks down? No escort? No support? The driver's stranded in hostile territory." Burgess taps the map. "These roads are still crawling with bypassed German units. Convoy security isn't just about air attacks." "Sir, with respect, we're losing a quarter of our supplies in convoys that are supposed to be safe. I'll take my chances alone." "It's not just your chances. It's Army property. It's strategic materiel." Burgess's voice softens. "Look, I appreciate the initiative. I really do. But this isn't a peacetime trucking company. This is military operations. There are reasons we do things a certain way." The room erupts when Kowalski tries presenting his data at a driver's briefing on August 28th. Other sergeants shout him down. "You trying to get us all killed separately instead of together?" one yells. "At least in a convoy, we've got support." Even the other drivers think he's crazy. The unofficial word spreads through the motor pools. Kowalski's got a death wish, wants to play cowboy on French roads while Luftwaffe fighters are hunting. His own squad stops sitting with him at chow. But 3 people are paying attention. Private First Class James Booker, a driver from Detroit's automotive factories, approaches Kowalski privately. "I've been watching the same thing you have. The independent runs are safer. Everyone knows it. They just won't admit it." 2 other drivers, Corporal Eddie Martinez and Private Willie Jackson, quietly tell Kowalski they'd volunteer for his method if it ever gets approved. It won't matter. On August 29th, Colonel Ross personally reviews the proposal and writes across the top, "Denied. Unauthorized deviation from convoy protocol is prohibited. Any driver operating outside established convoy parameters will face court-martial." The official Army has spoken. Raymond Kowalski's ridiculous idea is dead, except someone else has been reading the reports. Lieutenant General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, doesn't sleep much in late August 1944. The supply crisis is approaching catastrophic levels. Patton has been ordered to halt his advance, not by Germans, but by empty fuel tanks. The British 21st Army Group is rationing ammunition. The window to exploit the German collapse is closing. Smith is the kind of officer who reads everything, including after-action reports from truck companies. including casualty statistics from the Red Ball Express, including a proposal from some sergeant in Pennsylvania that everyone dismissed as insane. On August 30th, Smith walks into Colonel Ross's office unannounced. This truck driver, Kowalski, his proposal about individual dispatch, why was it rejected? Ross is caught off guard. Sir, it violates fundamental convoy doctrine. The vehicles would be... I read the doctrine. I'm asking why we're losing a quarter of our supplies following it. Well, sir, the casualties are within expected parameters for... Smith's voice could cut steel. Expected parameters? General Patton's entire army is immobilized because we're accepting expected parameters. Get me this sergeant. Now. 2 hours later, Raymond Kowalski stands in a headquarters tent facing 3 full colonels and a lieutenant general. He's wearing a coverall that still smells like diesel fuel. He hasn't shaved in 2 days, and he's pretty sure his military career is about to end. Smith doesn't waste time. Sergeant, explain your method. Assume I don't know anything about trucking. Kowalski takes a breath. Sir, the Germans can't attack what they can't predict. Right now, we send 20 truck convoys at scheduled intervals. The Luftwaffe knows our departure times, our routes, our speeds. They just station fighters along the route and wait. He pulls out his battered notebook. But if we load trucks as fast as they arrive at the depot, no waiting for convoy assembly, and send them out immediately at staggered intervals, the Germans never know when or where to intercept. Instead of 20 trucks bunched in a quarter mile, you've got 20 trucks spread across 60 miles of road over 3 hours. What about breakdowns? Colonel Ross interrupts. What about enemy ground forces? Same solution as now. We still run escort jeeps on patrol routes. But one broken down truck doesn't stop 19 others. And a bypassed German unit might ambush 1 truck. In a convoy, they'd ambush 20. The room falls silent. Smith looks at the numbers Kowalski's tracked. Conventional convoys, 23% losses. Independent trucks, 3% losses. The data's too small, Ross argues. Anecdotal evidence from a handful of... Then test it. Smith's decision is immediate. Sergeant Kowalski, you'll run a trial operation. 1 week, 20 trucks under your dispatch method. If losses drop below 10%, we implement it system-wide. Ross's face goes red. Sir, if this fails, then I'll take responsibility. But if it works, and we didn't try it, that failure's mine too. Smith looks at Kowalski. You've got your chance, Sergeant. Don't waste it. September 1st, 1944. Kowalski stands at the Alençon Supply Depot, watching 20 trucks roll in for loading. This is his test, his one chance. If it fails, men die, and he'll spend the rest of the war in the stockade. If it succeeds, he might save thousands of lives. The traditional convoy method would work like this. All 20 trucks wait until every vehicle is loaded, usually 4 to 6 hours. Then they depart together in formation, 60 yards apart, driving at 25 miles. Travel time to forward dumps, 14 hours. Total time from arrival to delivery, roughly 20 hours. Kowalski's method is radically different. The first truck finishes loading at 0600 hours. He doesn't wait. You're gone. Route 7, standard speed, independent operation. The driver looks nervous but nods and rolls out immediately. The second truck finishes at 0618. Go. Third truck at 0633. Go. Instead of a convoy departing at noon, Kowalski dispatches 20 trucks between 0600 and 1100 hours. 5 hours of staggered departures. They're spread across 90 miles of road at any given moment, traveling at optimal speeds for conditions rather than fixed formations. He also changes the speeds. Instead of the mandatory 25 mph convoy crawl, he tells experienced drivers, run what's safe. You know these roads now. If you can do 40, do 40. If it's 30, it's 30. The Transportation Corps observers are horrified. Colonel Ross's deputy keeps noting violations. Exceeding speed limits, no convoy organization, individual vehicle operations in combat zone. But something remarkable happens. The trucks start arriving at forward supply dumps faster than any convoy has managed. The first vehicle reaches the 3rd Army Depot at 1830 hours. 12 and a half hours from departure, 90 minutes faster than convoy average. The last truck arrives at oil-whelmed 45 hours the next morning. All 20 trucks deliver their cargo. 0 losses, 0 attacks. 1 minor breakdown, a flat tire that the driver changes himself and continues without delaying anyone else. The German Luftwaffe does spot 3 of Kowalski's trucks during the run, but intercepting a single truck requires a fighter to divert from patrol, hunt down one target, and expend ammunition on minimal payoff. German fighters sent to intercept scattered trucks. That's 1 less aircraft defending against Allied bombers or supporting ground troops. The Germans simply can't afford the trade-off. But the impact goes beyond just statistics. The Red Ball Express, now running Kowalski's staggered dispatch method, delivers 412,193 tons of supplies in 82 days of operation. That's enough ammunition, fuel, and equipment to keep 6 Allied armies advancing across France and into Germany. Patton's Third Army alone receives enough fuel to drive from Normandy to the German border. Historians will later argue about whether Allied logistics or combat prowess won the war in Europe. The answer is both, but logistics made the combat possible. And Kowalski's method made the logistics sustainable. The system spreads beyond the Red Ball Express. By November, trucking operations across all Allied theaters are adopting staggered dispatch. The British 8th Army in Italy tests it and reports similar results. Even Pacific Theater logistics planners begin studying the method for island-hopping operations. In late October, a German staff officer captured near Aachen is interrogated about supply operations. When asked about Allied trucking, he shakes his head in frustration. "We can't target what we can't predict," he says through a translator. "Your trucks are like ghosts now, everywhere and nowhere. We stopped even trying to intercept them. It's a waste of fuel we don't have." That quote finds its way to intelligence summaries and eventually to Eisenhower's desk. The Supreme Commander circles it and writes a note to Smith. This sergeant's method is forcing the Germans to concede the logistics battle. Recommend formal recognition. On November 18th, 1944, 2 days, 2 pilots don't bother. The third makes 1 strafing pass, misses, and returns to base rather than wasting fuel on pursuit. Day 2, another 20 trucks, 19 successful deliveries. 1 accident, a driver falls asleep and crashes, but it's a single vehicle loss, not a multi-truck pileup like convoy accidents cause. Loss rate, 5%. Day 3, 22 trucks, 22 deliveries, 0 losses. By day 5, even the skeptical colonels are watching the statistics with disbelief. Kowalski's ridiculous method is cutting supply losses from 23% to less than 3%, a 90% reduction. And trucks are moving cargo faster than anyone thought possible. On September 7th, General Smith issues the order. All Red Ball Express operations will immediately adopt staggered individual dispatch protocols as developed by Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski. The transformation happens almost overnight. By mid-September, the entire Red Ball Express, nearly 6,000 trucks, has abandoned traditional convoy operations. Depots load and dispatch vehicles continuously around the clock. Trucks depart every 3 to 5 minutes instead of massing into vulnerable formations. The statistics are staggering. In the final 8 weeks of Red Ball Express operations, September through November 1944, supply losses drop to 2.7%. Delivery speed increases by 32%. The amount of supplies reaching Patton's Third Army and other frontline units more than doubles. German after-action reports capture their frustration. A Luftwaffe squadron commander writes in October, Allied supply trucks now operate with no predictable pattern. Individual vehicle interdiction is ineffective use of limited air resources. Recommend focusing fighter operations on tactical ground support rather than logistics harassment. The Americans have made truck hunting economically impossible for the overstretched Luftwaffe. For every after the Red Ball Express officially ends operations, Technical Sergeant Raymond Kowalski receives the Bronze Star Medal for exceptional meritorious service in support of combat operations. The citation specifically mentions his innovative tactical logistics methods that significantly reduced supply losses and enhanced operational effectiveness. Raymond Kowalski returns to Pittsburgh in 1946. He goes back to driving trucks, the same job he had before the war. No book deals, no speaking tours, just a bronze star in a drawer and memories of a few weeks in France when his crazy idea actually worked. But the military doesn't forget. The U.S. Army Transportation Corps formally adopts staggered dispatch protocols as official doctrine in 1947. The method becomes required teaching at Fort Lee, Virginia, the transportation school, where every logistics officer learns about the Pittsburgh truck driver who rewrote convoy theory. During the Korean War, the Berlin Airlift, Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan, American logistics operations use variations of Kowalski's method. Modern military supply convoys no longer mass into large, vulnerable formations. Instead, they operate with dispersed timing, varied routes, and unpredictable patterns. The principle has evolved with technology. Today's military trucks have GPS tracking, satellite communication, and encrypted coordination systems. But the core concept, make the enemy's interdiction efforts economically inefficient by dispersing your logistics footprint, remains exactly what Kowalski figured out in a notebook while watching convoys burn. Civilian trucking learned from it too. The modern logistics industry's just-in-time delivery systems, staggered scheduling, and distributed warehouse networks all trace intellectual lineage to the same insight. Bunching creates vulnerability, spacing creates resilience. Companies like Amazon, FedEx, and UPS dispatch vehicles continuously throughout the day rather than in scheduled waves. It's more efficient, harder to disrupt, and scales better. They probably don't know they're using a method invented by a truck driver during World War II. But they are. In 2003, the U.S. Army Transportation Museum at Fort Lee opened an exhibit about the Red Ball Express. There's a section dedicated to Raymond Kowalski. His notebook, the one where he tracked convoy losses and calculated the math, sits in a display case. Next to it is a photo of him standing by his GMC Jimmy truck, cigarette in hand, looking like exactly what he was, a working-class driver who understood his profession better than the experts. The placard reads, "Sometimes the best innovations come not from commanders or theorists, but from the people actually doing the job." Kowalski died in 1983 at age 73. His obituary in the Pittsburgh's Post-Gazette mentioned his Bronze Star, but didn't explain what he'd done to earn it. Just a retired truck driver, a veteran, a quiet man who'd done his part. But in every military logistics course taught today, in every dissertation about World War II supply operations, in every analysis of how the Allies sustained their advance across Europe, there's a footnote about the sergeant who proved that sometimes the craziest idea is just the truth nobody wanted to hear. His method didn't just cut supply losses by 90%, it changed how the modern world moves everything from military equipment to consumer packages, still used today, still saving lives, still making the enemy's job economically impossible. All because one truck driver from Pittsburgh refused to accept that convoys were the only way.